Hey, it's Sean Hannity here, and this is South Jersey's talk station, WPG Talk Radio 1450.
All right, Sean, thank you. 24 minutes past the hour. It is my pleasure. I hope they know I have thanked them over the past 2 days for making it possible for me to step up and support an Atlantic City teacher who has been just so unjustly treated. And I do believe yesterday in our exclusive, we really had a breakthrough moment there, because I do believe a lot of board members know they got had. They didn't have all the information. They now have much more. And I feel pretty good about Phil Eisenstein's future. He should win that. And even without the board, he should just simply win the appeal. But even the board, I think, is turning around. Steve May is the president, Bill DiLorenzo, vice president, John Varallo, secretary, all here in studio with us from the Atlantic City Professional Firefighters, local number 198. And we're going to conduct for the rest of the hour an important, wide-ranging discussion all about the current significant financial challenges that the city of Atlantic City is facing, all the efforts that Atlantic City's professional firefighters have done to help the city get through such a challenging financial time. And you're going to hear some things you haven't heard before in how they have stepped up and helped in terms of savings. And they haven't really been given the credit that they deserve. They're going to get it here today. So is the president, you're going to begin?
Yeah, sure.
Ready to go when you are.
First of all, Harry, we'd like to thank you for, obviously, you helped us out tremendously with the SAFER grant, and you brought some things to light that weren't out there. So, first of all, we want to thank you very much for doing that. Really
Pleasure.
Helped us out a lot. I think it helped out the citizens of Atlantic City because...
that would have been a travesty. Had that grant been allowed to just wither on the vine, some other city would have gotten it.
Absolutely.
We would have gotten screwed, and more than 50 people and 50 families would have been crushed. And look what that would mean to your department, the Atlantic City Professional Firefighters. 50 men or 50 persons down would have been terrible.
Right. And obviously we feel that the citizens of Atlantic City deserve the same protection that other New Jersey cities get. Obviously, since they've been the cash cow for such a long time, why should they do with less of a fire department than other cities in New Jersey? So when you look at our budget, our salaries and wages budget from 2009, because that's when it started for us, because we were looking at layoffs back then, leading up to 2010. So we were making cuts since then. So if you look at the salaries and wages from 2009 to 2015, and you look at other cities to compare us to, if you look at Camden's salaries and wages during that time increased by 4%. If you look at Newark increased by 5%. Trenton by 10%. Patterson by 12%. New Brunswick, the model city, by 25%. So then when you look at Atlantic City, what our salaries and wages for that time period did, they decreased by 39%.
Because you guys have given back a lot, correct?
Well, exactly. We have shrunk our salaries and wages budget by 39% during that time period.
Not that I want to ask you to agree or disagree, whatever you say, Mr. President, you will say, but I think it's clear the public hasn't yet really processed or even heard how much you all have given back. I think it's not that it's being taken for granted, but I don't think the public knows.
No, and at the same time, during that same time period, which is even more important in many ways because it has to do with protection, they've budgeted for 125 less positions during that time period. So right now, from where we were in about 2010, our department is down 45% of our manpower, budgeted manpower. That's a huge number in anybody's department. And
how do you answer the question, is the city safe? Is it still safe based on the contraction?
Well, it is right now because we did get the SAFER grant to allow us to keep 85 extra men. But in about 19 months, when that grant is due to expire, we might go down to a 150-man department. And that's going to give us about 20 men more than we had when the fire department was established in 1904.
It's ridiculous. Then if I ask you the question, you wouldn't be able to answer that is an unsafe number, isn't it?
I don't think any serious person would say that it's not.
Because you have to look at a lot of things. There are vacations. People do get sick. People do get injured. People do retire. You wait for lists. You wait for, training, and then when they can come onto the job. So even the number you're at, you're never at.
Correct.
It's always less.
Correct. And obviously, our manpower we have to be ready to fight a fire on the 10th floor of a building every day, every night, 24/7.
Or the 49th floor of a casino.
Correct. If you go to the trauma center in the city there, just because it's a Monday and they might not have a lot of traumas on Monday, you expect to be taken care of. You don't go to the Coast Guard station and think that, they don't have a lot of missing boats on Wednesday, so they don't have anybody available. We have to be ready, fully operational, 24/7.
Let me slip in a very important question. We'll go to our bottom of the hour break after your answer, Mr. President, and we'll get all the rest of the panel in the time that we have, and we've had this bonus segment, which I'm glad you guys were early. Let me ask you this. When you've given back so much, how does it feel on a daily basis, morale-wise? Because people, even public safety officers, are human. They're not, you're not supermen. You're human, too. You do super things. But how does it feel to have given back so much? You cited generally the percentage, and it's a big number, and still to have so much uncertainty. And not even know when you're getting paid, if you're getting paid, and getting paid in a month, at all, in 2 months. I mean, it's got to be crazy.
It's very frustrating, and on some levels, it's insulting. It really is. Because to think that, people feel that we can cut our force by 45%, and that just might tell you that they think that...
And nothing changed.
Right. In that time when we've decreased from 45%, the Revel was built.
What's the rule? I used to know it, and I talked over the years, many years, with some of your team members about how a fire grows every minute or something like that.
Right, doubles.
So if you ever were down and depleted in such a way that response time would be slowed, you're talking about
Correct.
Health and lives.
Obviously, and that's a huge point for us. Obviously, we're a barrier island, and it's not so much the amount of manpower that you can have in the first 10 minutes. It's how much manpower you can amass. So if you don't have any cities that are around you that have large fire departments and you need help, the availability of resources that you can amass in a short amount of time is what's important. When we had the last storm, Brigantine had a fire. We had our resources over there, and as you know, many of the roads into the city were shut down. Mm-hmm. So, the residents of Atlantic City, because we had a lot of our resources over in Brigantine helping them out, which, we love to do, it taxes the resources of the city, and obviously it makes a situation where the coverage is not going to be there.
Mr. President, a very good point. Another thing that a lot of people, and it's not sometimes we think like they don't know. They just want to know if they pick up the phone and they call 911 that the police, the fire department, emergency medical services, EMS, everything is activated. That's what they want to know. But something that Atlantic City, I believe, has really distinguished itself as a professional fire department is in the area of mutual assistance. You help a lot of surrounding areas.
Absolutely.
That's really not really in the budget, if you will. That's just something you do on top of what you do.
Absolutely. For 2014, that's the last year that the statistics are out on the New Jersey Department of Fire Safety. There was only 10 other cities in New Jersey that had more fires or had more calls than Atlantic City. So our call volume is very high compared to, obviously, the surrounding area and even in the state.
33 minutes past the hour. Short, quick timeout. We'll be right back. It's Hurley in the Morning, WPG Talk Radio 1450, South Jersey's talk station. Tell a friend. This really is where the action is. This is the most relevant program, breaking more news, sharing with you more of the newsmakers than any other program in the metro market. Steve May, President Bill DiLorenzo, Vice President John Varello is the Secretary, all in studio this morning until the top of the hour from the Atlantic City Professional Firefighters, local number 198. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
The South Jersey news and weather you need to start your day, and the opinions you love. This is Hurley in the Morning on WPG Talk Radio 1450 and WPG1450.com.
We're back. We are visiting with the President, Steve May, the Vice President, Bill DiLorenzo, the Secretary, John Varallo of Atlantic City Professional Firefighters, Local Number 198. Just sharing with you guys, you've been hearing my phone has been blowing up the entire interview. A lot of people supporting you and what you do, and we're having a discussion about obviously the significant financial challenges affecting the city of Atlantic City. The Vice President, Bill DiLorenzo, great opening presentation thus far. Let me throw in a question, then you go back, because I know there are a lot of things. The purpose when we booked this interview, my goal was all of the things that they have done that nobody has heard about, let's get them out. Let's people hear how cooperative a union, collective bargaining unit has been, because all you hear about are that unions and collective bargaining units do not step up and help and give back. These guys have given back, both fire and police, I think unprecedented in the country. Even towns that have declared bankruptcy, I don't think have given back as much in advance of a declared bankruptcy. Usually they lose the benefits after a bankruptcy. This has been proactive collegiality to work with the city, to work with the taxpayers, to do the right thing, to step up, to keep all their members employed. You know, a lot of times, and I'm not saying about our guys because they're different, but a lot of times the older guys sacrifice the younger guys in terms of benefits and things. Hasn't happened here. When they fought for the 85, that was all the younger guys. It was to keep the department at safe levels. And we're going to talk about a lot of things in the remaining 21 minutes that we have. But let me have the one question, Mr. Vice President. In terms of, are you guys, because there's an inaccurate report on New Jersey 101.5, which we carry at the top of the hour, that says that all the employees already voted. It's my understanding that Local 198, the professional firefighters of Atlantic City, have not yet voted on this issue of getting paid once a month, but that you intend to. Can you share?
Yeah, sure. Our bylaws make it that we have to wait a period of time and get out the information to the members before they vote on something like that. But I'm very confident that the members are going to make the right decision, and we will be protecting the city.
What else is there to update everybody on?
You talked about unprecedented stuff.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, well, go look throughout the state and find another fire department who cut their salaries and wages since 2009 by 39%, because you won't be able to find it. And, not only did we, you might say, well, you had a lot to cut. Well, with the way we fit into our budget, also is, if you look throughout New Jersey, it's a small percentage of our total budget. So we're beating, even model cities like New Brunswick. They're 13% of their total budget. We're around 7%. So even, so you talk about model cities, and we go to the governor's advisory report, and they gave us some benchmarks, and they used New Brunswick as an example. And they gave us a budget benchmark and a manpower benchmark. And not only did we beat it, but we beat it handily by the budgetary by 17% and the manpower by 13%.
So what our listeners know as the Hansen Report, there were certain objectives, goals, and you guys crushed it.
We did, and we did it in a shorter time period than they expected. So when the mayor talks about moving goalposts, we're starting to feel the same way, because we just want to be treated fairly, that's all. And we're willing to do what we need to do, because we don't want the residents of Atlantic City to, suffer with higher taxes or not be able to protect the city the way it should be protected. And we've told the city, and we've worked with the state monitor and told them as much. We're willing to sit down and talk to anybody, anytime.
I've been hearing that even with all these cuts, and they're absolutely substantial, what you all have come to the table with already, 45% and all these numbers that you've been sharing this hour, that still with all these cuts, 2 fire stations are going to be closed as it stands now? Well,
if we do go down to that 150 number, that's going to be the case.
And tell people what that would mean.
Well, obviously it would mean that, right now, because we are distributed throughout the city, we can have great coverage. But that's not going to be the case. And
I mean, by definition, it would absolutely impact negatively response time, correct? It would have to, right?
Of course.
Because you're not as close as you used to be to somewhere that would be in need.
Right, and we don't want to be dramatic about this. We're not here to scare anybody, but these are just the facts. And, there's a standard that we'd like to keep up.
And you even know what it would be, right?
We're not sure, but they're in neighborhoods that people probably won't want to lose their firehouses.
It's a fair comment.
Yeah.
What else do we want to talk about, man?
I think what's important for us and through all this has really been, because a lot of the focus gets put on us, but at the end of the day, it's the taxpayer, and it's, well, how are you going to deal with without getting paid for a month, or how's this? I mean, the reality is, if someone calls 911, I mean, it's not, we'll wait till next month, or if we have an emergency, or if, my parent has a heart attack, or if my house catches on fire. I mean, so for us, it's been, our main concern has been the taxpayer, and it will always be the taxpayer. I mean, we took an oath to serve and protect the taxpayers. And I think what we've seen over the last, year, 18 months that we've seen a lot of this is, and especially with these other cities, it directly affects us because the funding situations. But you look around the state and you see these other cities and the funding they get to keep them protected. And for us, it's very difficult to see, taxes increase by, 50%, 100%, and then you're going to lose services too. I mean, it's very difficult for us to see that. And, when you look and the governor's made comments about, well, there's only 40,000 residents. And, I mean, anybody that realistically lives in Atlantic City can tell you that nothing is dictated all 40,000 residents.
Well, there's 30 million visitors.
Yes, and it's that we protect them too. If we have an emergency, it's not, well, do you live in Atlantic City?
Let North Jersey, and this is something we're going to fight very, very hard this year to help not make happen, but let North Jersey get 2 casinos. And if one is by the Meadowlands and wherever they're so shady, they won't even say where they're going to be, and it's a horrible, corrupt situation. But let 2 casinos pop up in North Jersey and see how public safety is impacted in those areas.
And it's important to realize in North Jersey, when they compare to them, most of these departments in North Jersey, they're pocketed departments they have massive amount of resources. So when something happens in Jersey City, Newark shows up, and North Hudson shows up, and Hoboken shows up, and they share services. Unfortunately down here, we don't have that ability. We're on a barrier island. We have small resource departments around us that, to be honest, they rely on us. They can't send their guys, with 8 guys, 10 guys on duty. So, where we're at now is basically at the bare minimum to really keep the residents safe, keep us safe, to be able to protect the city properly. And going any lower than this is, to me, is very dangerous.
Where Atlantic City gets hurt, and then we got to get a break in that I know that Bill wants to get back in, and John as well. Where Atlantic City gets hurt is for so many years, 30-some plus years, we had a monopoly. More than a $5 billion, industry, a rateable base that at its height was over $21 billion. Now it's $7 billion. So the Atlantic City public school system always should have been an Abbott school district.
Correct.
Should have been tens upon tens upon tens upon tens of millions of dollars coming to the school district. But no, Atlantic City is so rich it can fund the senior services programs, senior citizens programs around the state. The school district doesn't have to be an Abbott district. Nobody cared because the money was there comfortably to pay the bills. Suddenly, the whole model changes. There's tremendous contraction, a great recession. Everything's different. The jurisdiction, shrinks in half. And all of a sudden now, how do you feed the apparatus of government? And still Atlantic City School District is not an Abbott school district, and the city is not getting certain transitional aid. And you look, if the school district got what Vineland, what EHT, Pleasantville, and any other district you want to pull out of the sky, we wouldn't even be talking right now. The school district would be solvent and happy joy. And the same holds true where it comes to the city purpose side. So we'll let the President, Steve May, continue. I know Bill has a follow-up as well, and we'll be back in 90 seconds. It's Hurley in the Morning with Atlantic City Professional Firefighters Union Local 198. We've got the top brass in the studio.
It's Michael Savage. Join me tonight at 9. Now back to Hurley in the Morning on WPG Talk Radio 1450.
Hi, Michael. Thank you. Thank you for those very kind words. The President is in the house. We're going to put up digital evidence of this gathering. Bill DiLorenzo, President. Steve May, Vice President. John Borello, Secretary. of Atlantic City Professional Firefighters, local number 198. All right, Steve, you had the microphone, and I want to feather in a comment for you to answer, and then, Bill, you'll get your follow-up in right after that. Because as president, as vice president and one of the senior officers of the union, Bill, as president, shared his thoughts. What is morale in the department like right now?
It's been very difficult, Harry. I mean, and with us, it's almost like, you think you turn a corner and then you get to the other side and it gets somehow worse. And we went through this with the Safer Grant, and, it's a difficult job. I mean, everybody acknowledges that. Everybody loves the job, and, we're not looking here for credit and accommodations, but it seems every step of the way that, just another roadblock gets put up, and guys, it's difficult for guys, to come to work, and, you don't know if you're going to get paid, you don't know if you're going to have a job, and, that's been the narrative going on, really for about 5-6 years for guys, and it's difficult, but guys come to work, and, they keep their heads up, and, they're committed to the job, through no matter what happens, and we're always going to be here, because at the end of the day, we took an oath to serve and protect the residents and visitors of Atlantic City, and that's what we're going to continue to do.
Mr. President?
Well, when you talk about population, we don't have to talk about population in terms of telling you what we do, because our call volume, let's talk about what we actually do. Our call volume matches up to cities that have populations of 150,000. So, we don't have to play a population game or a game to try to make it look like we really don't need the coverage that we do. We have the call volume to substantiate what we have in the city.
And to touch base on, and you mentioned it before the break in terms of the funding and the Abbott districts, and listen, we realize it's nobody's fault what happened in Atlantic City. I mean, the rateable base here was decimated, and it's not the governor's fault, it's not the mayor's fault, it's just the reality of what happened. But it's difficult to see, when you look around the state, and you see what happens around the state, and because cities get brought up, and we get compared to cities like Newark, and we get compared to cities like Camden, and I feel like the taxpayers here, they're getting a raw deal, and through our work, we've gone back and we've looked, when they bring up these cities, and we went back last year, and you look at 2015, and you see Camden get, almost $400 million in state aid, and Patterson get $450 million, and Newark get over $800 million in state aid, and when we're in Trenton, we hear, there's an Atlantic City fatigue. And, last year, Atlantic City got $37 million in state aid, and we're talking about a takeover. And, I mean, so when you talk about, because the governor's made comments and people made comments about, well, how much spending it is per person. Well, if you look at state aid per person, I mean, these cities, and it's across the board, they get about $3,000 per resident in state aid. Well, Atlantic City doesn't even crack $1,000. So, we just want to be treated like everybody else. We don't want to be victimized, and we just, all we're looking for is a fair deal.
You're all being very, very fair about this. None of it is over the top, and I'm a firm believer, and I've been supporting this and saying it as much as I can. Now that it's not as big a jurisdiction as it used to be, and just the economies of scale, everything is different. It's half of what it used to be. Still, obviously, a substantial, at $2.6 billion. It's one of the largest gaming jurisdictions in the world still, but it's half of what it used to be. So I think the state has to take a look and say we need to do for Atlantic City what we would do for any other city. Atlantic City cannot be this separate island anymore. That's my belief. It's an equity issue. It's not fair.
Right. And the mayor and city council, what other city has cut $50 million in 2 years? Even, cities like Newark, they're getting $1 billion in state aid, and they're growing their salaries and wages. They're not ripping up their contracts. They're not going in there and taking away their right to negotiate their contracts. So we have a revenue problem. And obviously, like we said, they've already cut $50 million off the budget. And it was hard to do, but they did it. And if you look at the Lavin report talks about the savings for 2015, 2016. Well, look at page 37, because for the public safety in those savings, we're 78% of the savings for the salaries and wages. And then we're 48% of the total savings for the entire city, all expenses included. So, you look at all these things that are out there, and then to hear that things are the same and things have to change, we're sitting here saying, wait a minute, things have changed for us.
Dramatically.
Yeah, dramatically.
I know, for example, and I don't know the numbers as well on your side as I do with the police department because I haven't done the exercise yet. Maybe some of it we can do now. For example, I remember it wasn't all that long ago, a police officer got to top pay in 3 years. Then it went to 7. Then it went to 10. Is it now 12 or 15? I mean, so the steps are unbelievable now. I'm assuming you guys have also taken a significant haircut like that.
Yes, I mean, and we just went through this, and collective bargaining was a part of this. And we went to arbitration, and we had an independent arbitrator, dictate what this city could afford. And, the guys lost a lot. And you know what? We understand the situation the city's in. I mean, the top pay was cut by $12,000. The starting salary was cut by $13,000. The steps were increased 3 years, like you said. Every fringe benefit that they had, longevity, everything was cut. To really, going forward, these are savings that, you're going to feel every step of the way, 5 years, 10 years down the line. It's only going to save the city money as we continue. We lost benefits, and guys realized that was just the reality of the city. They could no longer afford the status quo, and we're fine with that. But when you continue to hear it's not enough, it's not enough. I mean, if you look around the state, it's more than anybody else has lost, and we've looked around the state, and I think that's where it starts to get difficult. Where you hear that, well, you haven't felt any pain, or you haven't, it is difficult.
And at the same time, the big shame of all this is the Meet AC, for those that don't know, that's the equivalent of any, large jurisdiction's convention and visitors bureau. The Meet AC team, they're selling Atlantic City in record numbers, despite these horrible headlines of bond downgrade from, B, which is already junk crap, 4 grades lower. Standard & Poor's took it to CCC. There's only 2 levels worse than that. And then all this other stuff about, hey, we might declare bankruptcy. Even with all of that, they're selling the mess out of this town in a great positive way. It's a shame that there's all this, sort of PR bad news that's happening. What else do you have? We've got 4 minutes.
It's important to the businesses and the commercial people in the city too, because if we do, have to decrease our department, there's an ISO rating that they base insurance rates on, and right now we just about get a passing grade. And that was based on the numbers we had back in 2010. So,
And by the way, when people hear, like it's not like you're trying, again, to scare anyone. Who knows if that grant that will fund 85 firefighters, that's not automatic.
Absolutely not.
Not even close. I mean, I'm starting to get worried after you get it a couple of times in a row. At some point, all of a sudden, you hear it's not available anymore. Well, and I don't think there is the money under the present, crunch that we're in. Because let's face it, if the grant didn't happen, they were going to lay off a significant number.
Right, and that's why we worked so hard to try to get it. I mean, like you said, if we got it, that meant somebody else who needed it didn't get it.
Even a former rat in the woodpile who knows who he is, that we called out publicly many times, was working against his own city. Not the mayor either, by the way, but a rat in the woodpile that did everything he could, not get paperwork in, all kinds of crazy stuff. But he didn't succeed, and that's very important that those 85 firefighters are on the job. So important.
Yes, and you touched on that. We had 50 firefighters on the last grant. Well, now it's 85. So, if we don't get that, we're going to be in big trouble with being able to protect the city adequately. And I talked about the ISO rating, and the ISO rating is directly related to what especially commercial properties pay for their hazard insurance. Now, if we go down that road and we can't get this grant, everybody's going to be paying more in hazard insurance than they're going to be saving by not paying for those 85 guys.
Let me conclude with this because the music's playing us out. I know that you guys will vote soon. I never tell anybody what to do, but I'm confident everybody's going to vote to get paid once for the month, because that gets everybody paid. You wait 2 weeks and you get it all at one time instead of every 2 weeks. It would take a knucklehead to vote against that. But there are knuckleheads. But I don't think that's going to be the case here. But this is important also to know, and I hope it doesn't come to this, because this really only buys a short period of time. If it comes to the point where people are not getting paid, I want everybody to know there is a grant that can assist paying your rent, utilities, or mortgages during the period that you are not being paid. I don't even want that to be necessary, but I throw it out there that we did our homework on that point, and it is available. It's just something to let you sleep a little bit more at night. Guys, we're in the final 5 seconds. Thanks for a great time, and come back whenever you want.
Thank you. We appreciate the time very much.
Thank you, Mr. President, Vice President, Secretary.